been in academy football for 16 years. We see loads of coaches freeze sessions to correct. How often do we see coaches freeze a session to say, that's unbelievable?
I don't think I've ever done that.
Never underestimate how perceptive children are, and particularly your own son is of you in a non-verbal moment, such as that eye roll. For that coach that you've just described, their why is around them. They want to coach bigger formats, proper looking football matches. So if that's their why, that's a problem. The one coach you don't want to be is a kid's last ever coach.
Welcome back to the It's Only Kids Football podcast. I'm your host, joined as always by my co-host and assistant manager, Mike Clark. And today we've got a familiar face returning to the pod. It's foundation phase coaching specialist, Paul Barry. 16 years in the game, coaching at Dagenham, Southend, Arsenal, Watford and Crystal Palace. He's a football DNA coach, a UEFA A licence holder, FA Advanced Youth Award coach and a published author. Today we're diving into a massive shake-up in the youth game, the FA's brand new 3v3 format for under 7s. We'll get Paul's thoughts on this shift and we'll be tapping into his expertise on how to coach it. He's here in person, live in the studio. Paul, welcome to the pod. How you doing, mate?
I'm good. Thanks, lads. And yeah, cheers for the invite. It's great to be here in the studio and to meet you guys in person.
Yeah, that's good, man. Your episode, which we recommend to everyone to go and check out, which was, I actually can't remember the title of it, but we'll put it in the description, but it's all about the language you use when coaching kids. And we know that that has been massively effective and important for us and anyone we shared it with. Like, we get loads of emails, always fireworks and magnets, which is what you said.
Genuinely, that's changed the way that we talk to the kids that we coach massively. We think about that constantly. And like Ben said, we're always recommending that episode.
That's brilliant. That's great to hear that it's resonated with a wide audience. That's part of the reason we do what we do, isn't it? To help and support those that perhaps don't have the exposure to academy environments, for example. So yeah, great.
So obviously this 3v3, it's not like 3v3 is a new thing. 3v3, you know, they're up to the pro game. They do 3v3 in training or whatever. But now it's become mandatory at under 7s. So when a child's first experience, their first entry into football, will be playing 3v3. Quite a lot of debate over this in terms of like the positives, the negatives, what are the outcomes, etc. But for you, what do you think the benefits of 3v3 as an entry point for a child into the game?
Yeah, I think this as a new FA initiative is really exciting, first and foremost. And there's a lot of research that's gone on prior to rolling this out next season. Lots of in-depth research around different countries and analysis of different level and age group of grassroots games to bring about and encourage this type of initiative as far as rolling out 3v3. I think for me, if you look at the larger scale games of 5v5, 7v7 with goalkeepers, for instance, I think the fear often is that they can become quite positional. And even at the youngest age groups, coaches start to think about formations and, you know, positional responsibilities and shaping a centre back or a centre forward. The 3v3, as far as I'm aware of how it's going to be rolled out and how it is essentially anyway, it's football in its purest form. You know, it's 3 boys, 3 girls playing against 3 other. It's simple, it's exciting. You know, you're going to maximise touches. There's going to be no passive bystanders like goalkeepers that can be inactive for large quantity of fixtures and training. You know, kids are going to get loads of involvement, loads of touches, loads of decisions to make. I love the fact that it's going to be very much run by the kids themselves. I know coaches will be there to organise, support, facilitate, but, you know, no refs, no keepers, kick-ins and dribble-ons from the side. Of course, throw-ins will come as they progress and get older. That's fine. I think this season is okay to not have that as part of the game. But I think essentially if you look at number of touches and ball contacts, quantity of contextual problem solving and decisions, and just letting them enjoy the game as their first taste of grassroots football.
Yeah, I mean, when we went to St George's Park the other week and watching it, because obviously we do 3v3 in training, right? But we were watching it in terms of how they'd set it up. So like if you went as a club, let's say there's like 4 games going on. So let's say you took a squad of 12. All these games are happening and then you're just rotating around. The games are like 6 to 8 minutes. And then there's like facilitators and no one's really reffing it. No one's really coaching it. What I felt that did was it turned it in to a training session, which some people might see that as a good or a bad thing, right? But because now the pressure is off to win, because it's only an 8-minute game, it kind of doesn't feel like a match, then that stops the coach coaching or like getting too involved. And then the parents aren't really bothered because no one's really keeping track of what's going on because they're moving like this. And I felt like those nuances to why it was happening was what allowed the freedom to play, because it felt like training. It didn't feel like a match. And then maybe if that's your first year of doing that, that acclimatizes you to what it might be like, so that when you go to 5v5, you might have that more of that approach and attitude rather than being like super intense.
As a coach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like you go straight into 5v5, you're like, right, we've got to win. We've got to win. We need to win. But you've had a year of not doing it, but not really caring about who wins. Because like at the end of if you play like however many games, who's going to be like, so what? And you'll be like, I don't know. I can't remember what the scores were. And maybe that will help when you get to 5v5. I don't know what you think, but I think making it feel like training is actually the big positive from it.
I think it's clearly part of the FA's thinking, isn't it, to be rolling out this program and shaping it in that way and making it feel quite like a carousel approach, like you say, with the boys and the girls rotating around and playing against different other kids in different teams, etc. That you're going to lose track of goals scored. They're mini goals for a start, so goals aren't going to look like traditional goals would do when you're beating a goalkeeper, or there's different types of finishing and shooting. They're going to look quite consistent as far as the finishes. They're going to be more like passing finishes. So for the kids to experience that for their first year, I do think is a positive, because these kids, you want to be playing football. You want them to play football for the next 30 years. They're going to have so many opportunities to compete for cups and leagues and points at stake and knockout games, penalty shootouts. They'll be in jeopardy on fixtures. So what's the issue with their first ever year when they're 6 years old or 7 years old? It looking a little bit different. And if I'm a 7-year-old and I've scored a hat-trick, I'm going to remember that. And I might remember in an 8-minute game we beat the other team 3-0 because of my hat-trick. So we say that they might not remember, but there'll be certain moments that they can fall upon and do resonate with them as they get older. But I think shifting the emphasis to more fun, that street football vibe that's only going to be sort of advocated when it's not being overly structured, because that's the street, isn't it?
Yeah.
South London, the cages, for example. What you want them to have, like you say, Ben, is that feeling of expression and creativity when there are points at stake. So that will be the real challenge when they get to under 8s, under 9s, because that shift will take some skill from the coach to move away from the carousel, we don't remember the score, to we're playing for an hour today against one team. It's 5v5, as it will be the following season with goalkeepers, for example, and there's going to be a score. So how do we start transitioning that towards the end of the 7th season will be the real skill, I think.
Yeah.
And I think one thing that the FA said, which kind of resonated with me, was basically touching on all what we're talking about, but it's why is there a need to rush to the next format? Why is there a need to rush to the next age group? There is no need to rush anything. Just like almost sit back and enjoy the kids just playing. And I personally think when it's almost like an out of body experience when you see coaches for the first time going into 5v5, obviously prior to this announcement, and you just see how intense they are and you see how small the kids are. And that was us. We were exactly that person, like screaming on the sidelines for like, these kids are so small because they're out of position or something crazy. And you see it on the pitches. Whereas with this format, it just won't happen, because for all the reasons we've said, they're small games, they're quick, that you're constantly evolving, you're constantly moving around. You can't be screaming on the sidelines, because what are you going to be screaming at?
I think you make a really good point in that there's a load of stuff out there in the minute about how beneficial it is for the children. There's probably not quite as much as you're alluding to there about the benefits and value for the coaches.
Yeah.
And you've made a really pertinent point there in that it's a great introduction for the kids at 6 and 7 years of age. It's perhaps an even better introduction for the younger, novice, inexperienced coach to sample what kids' football in its essence should feel like when they're at their youngest ages and their most formative ages of learning. And again, they'll evolve when they start to work with either keeping that group when they're 8s and 9s and moving along with them as they progress through the age groups, or, transitioning into 11 aside, 15, 16s, having to deal with maturation and growth issues, those sorts of things, tournaments, cups, league pressures, parental pressures. Yeah. So have an an ease into it from a child's perspective, but just as much from a coach's angle as well, I think.
I was thinking that.
And you're still going to have the challenges around training, right? So the games are almost your freedom from a player's perspective, from a coach's perspective, from a parent's perspective in many ways. That's just them there to have fun. But you're still going to be able to coach them, right? In training, you're still going to be able to work on the technical, tactical, or less tactical, but more technical elements of ball mastery, passing, all of the stuff that you'd be doing in training. That's something that we didn't really go into much detail on when we went to the St George's Park, but it'd be great to understand from your perspective. How are you going to be teaching this? What should coaches be doing? So yes, they're going to have this new format around matches, and that might be on a Sunday, say. What are you doing on a Saturday to help them progress?
I think it's a long-term piece initially. I think it's just as easy to say within this answer the things that perhaps not coach and to avoid. So things like formations, there's only 3 players, so formations is going to be a bit of a moot point anyway. Team shape, teaching passing combinations and sequences in training, these sorts of things that are very directive from the coach and structured. Positional responsibilities, all the things that are going to become way more applicable and relevant as the children progress through the age groups. For me, I'd look at 3 things. I'd look at the mastery of the ball, essentially. That has to be the most prominent and predominant part of your training session, is getting the kids ball competent and ball confident. And that's over the course of the whole season. So whether they train once or twice a week, or the game at the weekend, add those hours up, add those minutes up. Can the bulk of the session be based around ball leach, mastery, manipulation, different surfaces, to progress into some form of opposition like 1v1s or 2v1s that we can perhaps talk about as we progress through the conversation here. I'd also, because we're looking at 3v3, increasing touches, increasing goal opportunities, increasing shots at goal and goals being scored. So that attacking mindset. So looking at forward passing, forward movements, to supporting beyond the ball, when to support beside the ball, when to support behind the ball, but mostly supporting beyond the ball, because we want to be positive with the kids. We want to advocate goals being scored, positive movement, that sort of thing. And then I think because of the age group and because of the format and the constraints of the pitch, transition, I think, will be a key thing. So what's our mindset when we lose the ball? What's our mindset when we regain the ball? So it's those 3 things for me. I'd look at the ball mastery and manipulation. I'd look at the attacking intent, and I'd look at the ability and the mindset around transition.
So could you sort of, let's say, so I'm going to help with my youngest team as well, and he's going to be doing this. So if I thought I didn't have any time before, I definitely do not have any time now in my life. But he asked me to do it. I mean, how can you turn down? And also, by the way, I'm like, yeah, I'm doing your brothers, but I ain't got time for you. So I'm gonna do it. And I was thinking about what I do for training, and I'm taking the lessons that I learned from doing Alfie's team to begin with, which, as we explained to you, walking in there with some like under 7s, right, we're going to do a low block and we're going to do passing combinations and third man runs, and they're all looking at me like, what's going on? So I know now, to keep it simple, I was thinking 15-20 minutes, let's say, when they first get there for an hour, would just be ball mastery, me teaching them. Each kid's got a ball. We're just going to do different turns on right foot and left foot. And then I was probably just thinking of going into splitting them in and just doing 1v1s, 2v2s and 3v3s. And that's as simple as I was going to keep it. And I'll probably do that every session, every week. And then we'll get onto a question later. It's like, then it's up to me to see how they evolve and then whether to change the session. But I was essentially just going to do that.
See, that's a really, really logical structure to work with, and the kids will get used to that. I think the skill with that will be around when to keep the main essence of a session design and maybe work with that for a block of 6 weeks, so the kids are familiar with it. So then you're minimizing vocals as far as introduction. You're minimizing questioning for understanding because the kids are more familiar with it. I'd also then challenge a coach as far as structuring a session in that way that, okay, well, when are you going to change it slightly? When are you going to play the game aspects of it that was traditionally at the end of a practice? When are you going to do that at the start to keep the kids' attention and to keep them sort of thinking in a different way? Are you going to do the ball mastery at the end, for example, when the kids are a bit more tired? when it's probably more challenging to manipulate a ball when there's fatigue sort of set in from the prior 50 minutes within the session. That's a great starting point for sure. What I'd add to that really for me would be the decision-making piece. Decision-making for me and problem solving comes from when we've got more players in the opposition. So loads and loads of 2v1s, because the game 3v3 is going to look like little mini 2v1 moments, 1v2 moments, 3v2 moments. It won't always look like 3 versus 3 as the 11-a-side game doesn't. There's always screenshots of little mini duels and whatever numbers that encompasses. So give the kids loads of repetition of 2v1 moments to goal, to the next third, to a zone, to a target player, because then you're bringing about and eliciting that real key decision, which is when to pass, when to dribble, when to pass, when to dribble, when to stay, when to share. And they're the key things that you want the kids to become proficient at as they progress through that season.
So that's why you're here, Paul.
Yeah.
That's why you're here, mate, because I hadn't thought of that. And that's probably why we get so annoyed. So we've focused so much on ball mastery with the older group and dribbling, and they're all really good at it. And they do like multiple sessions a week where they're doing with other coaches. But we teach them this all week, and then we get annoyed with them on a Sunday when they don't pass the ball. And, you know, all the time I'm trying to communicate, especially to my son, I'm like, 1v1's a choice. Like, it's there if you need it, but you don't have to, you can pass it. I know I've been training you all week to be good on the ball, but when we get to a game, I want you to pass it. And it's very confusing for him. He's like, but why am I doing all this training where I'm beating people? And then when I get the ball, you want me to pass it. But I guess it's then factoring that into training where you're creating the decision-making element to it. So they know that to pass probably has a more efficient outcome. I'm probably going to score with 2v1 and we're on goal rather than me trying to beat him if I play it to the man in space.
Yeah, that's the big one to try and sell to a 6 or 7-year-old, because they're egocentric, they're ego-driven. They want the ball. That's why when you watch 7, 8-year-olds play, you know, old school 7-a-side, you got your swarm of bees when they're first sort of, you know, being introduced to the game when they're very, very young. And the fear with 3v3 is that it could look quite similar, albeit with a far reduced amount of players on the pitch. I think with 2v1s, that one player in possession of the ball has to notice their teammate. They have to know where they are. So then you're really encouraging that spatial awareness. They haven't got to necessarily use them, because as the season progresses, you can start making unselfish runs. I know perhaps you use different terminology, and that would be around the kids' learning capacity. But then you're looking at creating space for your mate on the ball, because there's never a pure 1v1. The nearest player or players, whether that's your teammates or opposition, are always going to be within your eye line. So there's always an opportunity to use them to share or use them to stay, because they're dragging opposition away and creating space for you. So I think my point on that one is they haven't got to use them, but they've got to see them for it to work. And as far as a problem solving sort of increase in their game insight.
And then I guess the only other piece is just because we've spoken a lot about language with you previously, and I know that and you just touched on it then, when we started, it was all just language that the kids just didn't understand, but we were novices, and just like most volunteer coaches are novices. When you're going into that 3v3 environment, we spoke about fireworks and magnets, right? That made sense when it's kind of 5v5, 7v7. With 3v3s, you still need to spread out, right? You can't, as you said, you can't swarm like bees all the time, even though it is a small pitch and that's most likely going to happen. But what kind of language should you be using? How should you be trying to teach the kids in the right way and not teach them as if they're adults?
Yeah, again, I think whether you use metaphors or analogies resonates really well with coaches.
Yeah.
You know, you said the feedback from the previous episode has been fairly positive, which is great to hear. And of course, it resonates with kids because that's essentially how their brains work. They resonate with stories and with analogies that aren't necessarily to do with the game. But if we're to use words that perhaps aren't maybe in the first instance as child-friendly and as story-like, just connect to the ball. When are you going to connect to the ball? Well, as they progress, they'll start to connect to the ball when their teammate looks like they're about to lose the ball because they might need their help. When are you going to disconnect from the ball? Or again, as they progress and their game insight and understanding increases, it's going to be, well, my teammate's got time. They've got space. They lifted their eyes up. Okay, now I'm going to disconnect from the ball because it might be that I can then get into a forward position to receive that pass to be through on goal. So connecting, disconnecting, and language we used to use at Arsenal around that was you connect when the possession perhaps looks insecure. You disconnect when perhaps the possession looks secure. So again, it's that piece of transition, isn't it? I'm going to start connecting to you, Ben, if it looks like you're about to be dispossessed, because then we can counter press together. I'm going to disconnect from you if you look comfortable and secure, because it looks like then you can, expand the game and play a forward pass, and we could be in an attacking moment. So those are words that I would use, and they're just words that kids, you can help them understand. You can still use magnets and fireworks. Perhaps they're more relative or relevant to the bigger game, but on a smaller scale, they're still going to work. But those would be sort of several words that I think you could start to implement in like a session vocab library. Yeah.
God, he's good.
I
Isn't
know. When I listen to you talk about it, like there's a creativity to this, right? It's not like completely the formulaic, right? You have to be creative of how you're doing it. How do you develop this stuff? You sitting in a room with other coaches? Are you sitting on your own? What is the process where you go from shouting out press or some other terminology, or like play in the channels or turn them, or like stuff that you'd say to an adult? How do you go from realizing that is wrong, then going through the process of creativity, of developing stuff that works or understanding it, and then implementing it? I'm interested to know how that goes.
That's a long-term piece. I've been coaching for 30 years. I was in grassroots football for 13 years. I've been in academy football for 16 years. So 30 odd years of shaping your craft around how to be effective as a coach. When I first started, I was exactly that. I learned from this back when I was 16, 17 years of age, and volunteering at weekends coming back from university, for example. And your coaching know-how was based around the coaches that you'd observe. So now you're looking at the late 90s, when this is before the introduction of sort of small-sided football, mini football. So young kids were still playing 11v11. So what went with that was a very archaic session design and coaching approach. So my first few years of coaching, I was that. I thought the kids were a reflection of me. So I tried to shape them on the sideline by using lots of dialogue and being fairly sort of animated. I think as you progress through different jobs, whether you're part-time in community programs, full-time with the FA as I've been, part-time academy, you work with so many people. You work with so many different types of child. I've been to America and worked with girls teams, different age groups. All those experiences put together allow you to shape a way that you feel is comfortable for you. I think what I'm essentially saying here is just your self-awareness. Your self-awareness has to get to a level when you're watching a game of football or a training session, and you purely and with total confidence understand that it's not about you. Only when you get to that stage does your noticing ability improve, your observational skills, when to intervene. And that could be a freeze moment because it's affecting a moment for the whole group or a unit or a small group of players. When to drive by and just take a kid to the side and have a quiet 10-second conversation or provoke a thought with a question or an incentive, and then they go back into the practice. All those things and those coaching approaches and those techniques only come when you've been involved in football for years and years, and observing some really skilled practitioners, as I've had the opportunity to do, like in this country and overseas as well. And then you glean as much as you can from people to shape your toolkit, essentially.
Yeah. So can I just come and watch you for the next 15 minutes? I don't do enough of that. I don't think we do of the like pulling one kid to the side and saying something. I always feel like if I want to make a point, I'll make the point to everyone. And I think
you've been harsh there. I think we do. Maybe we don't do it
okay,
enough.
maybe I'll stop the session if it's my son particularly. But I do think maybe it doesn't have to be a big lecture.
Yeah, I think with that one, there's nothing wrong at all with those freeze moments. It was the traditional stop, stand still.
Yeah.
As long as there are certain variables within that are conducive to learning. So first and foremost, are you affecting a large group within that practice, a unit, members of each team? Are you coaching on, around and away from the ball? Are you concise and succinct with your dialogue within that moment? Are you telling? Are you prompting? Are you praising? Again, because we see loads of coaches freeze sessions to correct or to administer some type of, no, that was wrong. How often do we see coaches freeze a session to say, that was unbelievable. That was excellent. Can you show us that again?
I don't think I've ever done that.
No.
That's really skilled coaching, because you think in that moment, I want to freeze the game or the session to empower a young person or people in front and highlight something they've done really brilliantly. So whether they can recreate it again or just applaud them, might be only be a 10-second intervention and then get out again. But how valued does that young player feel in that moment? And the more we do that, the more kids are going to try stuff, because kids just want our positive attention.
Can we just freeze here and just applaud Paul? Because that was spot on. I mean, we've never done that. It's so simple. So many of these ideas, and the ideas, to be fair, of a lot of the coaches and pros that we've had on, they're so simple. But all it needs is just to click with you, and then that's what we'll just carry on doing now.
I just think that comes from what you said, which was perception. Yeah. So the things are simple. What is being said is simple, but being able to notice it and know it is not simple. That is the skill.
Yeah, and you're only going to enhance your noticing skills if you minimize your own vocals. Because when we're talking, we're only saying what we know. You know, when we're watching, we're going to find out stuff that perhaps we don't know. And only then can we really get to know our kids, build that rapport, that connection, that trust, so that when we do go in explicitly to either correct or question or positively reinforce something, they're going to listen to us. Otherwise, it does become very, very much that white noise effect, when if we're overly vocal, we're overly animated, and we're like that all the time, how are kids going to get anything done? How are they going to improve and develop if that's the consistent approach we take?
Quick break. Before we dive back into the episode, we want to take a moment to help you level up your coaching game with the help of Football DNA, the ultimate coaching platform that's been a game changer for us. What do we love about it? It's super easy to use, saves us loads of time, and best of all, it doesn't just show you how to set up a practice, it teaches you how to coach it properly. And that's the key. The sessions are put together by top level coaches. We're talking first team staff at clubs like Celtic, Crystal Palace and West Ham. Proper pedigree. You get videos, diagrams, full explanations, downloadable PDFs, and if you need it, a full 36-week training plan tailored to the age group you are coaching. Our lads have loved the sessions. It's made our lives easier, improved our coaching, and taught us loads. Now we genuinely look forward to training and developing our players. Check it out at footballdna.co.uk. That's footballdna.co.uk, or you can download the app. Just search Football DNA. Trust us now, and you'll thank us later. I've got to lay off my own son. I mean, he's called me out a few times recently. I mean, I've got loads better, but he's called me out a few times recently, and then he does a thing called Complete Football Academy on a Tuesday. And he come back and he'd got like Player of the Term or something the other day. And then when he called me out the other day, he was like, you always say, why don't I play like I do at Ballers with you? It's because you're always telling me what to do. And when he's saying that stuff to me, like, you're like, wow. Like, wherever else he's training, he's absolutely flying. And he is good for us. He's really good for us. But I just think to myself, well, how good could he be? Or how much, let's not worry about how much more fun and enjoyment could he get out of being with me if I just shut up? And yeah, I mean, it is so hard. And again, I know that I am massively hard on myself, and we have got better, but I don't know. We were saying in training, we think training is the hardest time to be around your own son, because in a game, there's separation. But in training, I could be standing next to him and he's doing something that is annoying me. And also, you say something to one of the other kids and they just do it. But if their dad was out here saying, do that, you get the little microaggressions from your son. I mean, me and Michael, the eye roll, the huff, and now I'm angry because I'm like, I literally was only telling you one thing, why won't you do it? That is a whole other level of skill, coaching your own son.
So just on that one, never underestimate how perceptive children are, and particularly your own son is of you in a non-verbal moment, such as that eye roll, that shrug of the shoulders, that turn away, that look of frustration. They'll pick up on that as much
massively.
as they would do something that's more vocal.
Yeah. And you know what, like sometimes he'll say to me, I'll do something body language wise, and he'll be like, "What?" And I'll be like, "I didn't say anything."
Yeah.
But I know that he's noticed, and he's like, "I thought you looked annoyed," and I'm thinking, "Yeah, I was annoyed. You didn't pass it again." But
we have had that before though, and that is so hard, isn't it? Because we I remember so clearly it was a match, and Raf had messed up. My son had messed up and made a mistake at the back. I think it led to a goal, and I was like raging with him, and I looked over and went, "It's okay, it's fine," because the language I was using was fine, but body language was awful.
he knows you're
And
lying.
he knows, yeah.
Yeah. So it comes one of two ways. Either you become one of the world's greatest actors
Yeah.
on the sideline and a great performer that can hide your actual intentions and feelings, or, and preferably, you evolve to someone that doesn't matter.
Yeah. You
It doesn't
genuinely
matter.
believe
It doesn't affect me. And my real thinking here is supporting him when I talk to him next if he's given the ball away and conceded a goal.
Yeah.
Because that is unbelievable learning for a young player. So it's like a first team player missing a penalty. Why would they need criticism? They know exactly what they've done wrong.
Yeah.
And the children know that as well. They might need some prompting and some questioning and some guiding to get to a solution to perhaps make a different decision the next time they're in that particular situation. But the criticism, non-verbally and verbally, is a difficult one for me to understand, because I think the child knows they need you. They need you more than ever in that moment.
It's so true. And I was thinking about this the other day where we got a new boy join the team, and we're trying to teach him different stuff, which was like, we're saying to him, stay on the ball. We're saying to him, if you lose it, no worries. What I don't want you to do is kick it anywhere. And this is kind of a new concept for him in terms of how he's played. We play in a game, he gives the ball away. I go, don't worry, it's fine. Do it again. I tell the goalkeeper, give him the ball again. Do it again. Do it again. My son plays a pass that doesn't find the right person. Totally different reaction. Totally different reaction. But now I'm like, I think about it and I'm like, why? Why? And my youngest was training yesterday, and he's 5, so obviously I'm completely insane. But he's doing stuff, and I'm watching it, and I'm getting inside. I'm not coaching. I'm watching. So I don't say anything. I'm not shouting anything, but I'm getting more and more irritated at like what he's doing, and then I'm sitting there thinking, he's literally never been shown how to do this thing that I'm getting irritated at. Like diving into a tackle or like stuff like that. And I'm like, why is he doing that? Why would he do that? And I think he's never been shown. We've come up with this phrase like, coach, don't criticize. I don't do. In my head, I'm like, why am I not? If it was another kid, I wouldn't care. Yeah. But when he does it, it annoys me so much.
It's pure emotional investment, isn't it? And you're emotionally invested in your group, your team, because you think it's your team. Let's try and sort of work around that language as well, because it's not your team. It's not their team as far as coaches. It's the club's team, the collection of boys and girls that represent that club. And I mean that from grassroots and academy as well. Particularly, it's very prominent in academy football. But of course, with your own son or daughter, you're going to be way, way more emotionally invested. I think in that situation you've described there, Ben, I'd also think, what does the other boy think? The one that's receiving that, don't worry, keep going. What do they think when they see their teammate, albeit your son, receive very different vocals from the sideline in completely the same or very similar situation? Does that then cause some confusion for them? So it's not just yourself that's being affected. It might not be just your son that's being affected. It might be the other boy or girl in that team that's experiencing something different that's aligned with the same sort of situation. So being consistent across the group is really, really key, I think, whether it's the other boys and girls or your own child indeed.
That makes sense. And again, I hadn't really thought about how sometimes when we speak with our sons and how different it is, how it could affect the other group. Well, see, you're clearly very experienced, like 30 years you were saying around this. Just to take it one step back, just bring it back to 3v3. There's loads of negatives, right? And there has been negatives that we've had on social media around it, just various questions that are in kind of negative tones. And we came into, when we went to St. George's Park, we came in with some negative thoughts in our head around how it would actually work in practice. And I think a lot of those negativity had kind of subsided when we actually saw it. But can you think of any negatives, any drawbacks? I know a lot of this, when you make change, there's a bit of push and pull. Can you think of anything that is fairly negative or something that would need to be worked on?
Yeah, I think the one you mentioned there is the most obvious one. The fact this is a brand new initiative, it's going to take some education. There's loads of great work being done through the county FAs, through coach developers at the moment. And obviously you guys are right on top of that through your visit to St George's recently. And you're seeing what it looks like in realities and speaking to people that perhaps it's new to. So the education piece might take some time. That's a given, I'd say. The other couple I'd perhaps consider are what I'd call like the hogger effect.
Yeah.
So you might get one particularly physically maturated young player that is stronger, quicker, more athletic than the other boys or girls in the team, and just literally get the ball, get their eyes down, head goes down, and they just run, and other players just bounce off them because they're a level above. So we need to be skilled around how do we support that for the benefit of that young player to have more variety in the way that they develop, and to make the game sort of have more jeopardy and be more competitive and not too one-sided. So that's something to consider for sure. And whether in training we utilise lots of those overload moments, so 1v2s, 1v3s, for example, with that particularly strong physical player, to give them a sense of, okay, we need to make it more competitive for you. The other one I'd probably say is the similar to the coach's mindset, is the parental or the potential parental backlash as well. So like you've alluded to it there at the beginning of the conversation, Ben, with it doesn't look like real football. You know, they're rotating around, they're playing against different teams, we're not remembering scores. The coaches aren't coaching, that sort of thing. We haven't got goalkeepers, we're not seeing sort of shots ping into the top corners of the goals. Again, it's an education piece for me to educate the parents early with workshops, but ongoing through that season. Don't just think that if you do one evening at the start of the season in August or September, that it's going to be retained and remembered through to July of the following year. So repeat workshops and education pieces, regular conversations to advocate 3v3, and to really sort of encourage it as a developmental program, and it's not a scaled down mini Premier League match. So yeah, the hogger effect I think is one to be mindful of, and the potential parental issues that might come with the game format looking like it does, or looking like it will.
One of the negatives that we thought was just the ball in play time.
Okay.
Because the ball going out, it just goes off the pitch all the time. So seeing it in practice, like when they had the setup at St George's, it didn't really have that, right? Because you had the perfect setup. There's coaches and facilitators everywhere. As soon as the ball goes out of play, they're putting the ball back in play. My worry is just that, and the FA did talk about this, is the imperfect nature of, you know, when you go to these places, as how many footballs have they got? How many people are around the pitch? Is anyone going to get the ball? Like when I've seen it, the ball is out of play a lot. The kid kicks it, then they all run to go and get it, and you're like, no, come back. And then they all run back, and then no one's brought the ball, and then you go and get the ball, and all this time is just lost, like with the ball. Obviously, the way to fix that is have balls around the pitch and just be putting them back in play. But that was probably the only. And our other thought was, what if you get some mental coach, which is absolutely possible? So they're winning a game, and he says, right, just stand in front of the goal, block the goal. It will happen. There will be someone that tells a kid to do that.
Yeah, I think there's going to be loads of little bumps in the road within this initiative next season. The one with the footballs and the pitch constraints for me is an interesting one. That you're observing that recently, in the last sort of week or so. What's it going to look like in 6 months when the kids have had 6 months of playing the game? You'd imagine and you'd hope and you'd assume that it's going to look different, because essentially they're going to be doing 3v3 training in the week, 3v3 games regularly for 6 months in this example. How many minutes of 3v3 is that? How many weeks and months? Obviously, it's all going to stack up. So they're going to be more considerate of the ball as they become more efficient in dealing with it and the pitch constraints. So what we see now isn't necessarily what we're going to see midpoint, end point of the season. It's going to evolve. Yeah, because it has to, because they're going to transition into a larger scale game, as we've spoken about when they get to under eights anyway. Yeah. The one with the coach, I think, is a more challenging one, because that's going to involve conversations, of course, and whether there are conversations that go on pre-game, During game, ideally not, because that's a reaction. But setting up the environment pre-game, I think, is really, really key. And if the opposing coach renegades on that and it goes against what was discussed, then I think you leave it and you address it at the end when things have calmed down. And you address it in the most calm and measured way, because they're clearly doing it to win a game of football. But winning games of football 3v3 is not really what the framework's about. It's about fun, enjoyment, introduction to football. That's clearly a coach that needs to go and coach at a larger format of the game. If not, choose a different sport to be involved in, perhaps.
And I guess the only other negative was just coaches and teams just skipping it altogether, which is a real challenge, right? So you just say, I as in the coach or the parents, want it to feel more like the game that I have played or the game I watch on telly, and I want to see the goals and I want formations and all that. So I will skip this whole thing altogether and move them up an age group and get them into 5v5 quicker. And I don't know how they're going to tackle that, because we've already seen teams do that, and we'll probably see a lot of teams doing that. But I think I totally understood that before this last couple of weeks. I totally understood why teams would do that, because that's probably a conversation we would have had. But after seeing it and hearing all of the thoughts of and all of the research and actually seeing it live in practice, I just don't know why people just wouldn't just try it out. If you don't like it after 6 months, then there's always chances to move. But I just don't know why you wouldn't try it out. Just take the time and hone your craft for a year as well. Get used to kids football. Get used to dealing with children, because a lot of them won't have ever dealt with that. And just in a less pressurized environment.
It's that self-awareness piece again, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's that why do we coach? In that example there, the clear indication for me, for that coach that you've just described, their why they coach is around them. They want to coach bigger formats, proper looking football matches, training programs that go alongside it. So if that's their why, that's a problem. So the why and the rationale to when you get involved in coaching have to be established early. If your why is to spend time and develop and empower young people and children, then I'd be aligned with that. Yeah, and we can shape a really, really effective coach out of that initial why. If your why is to, stroll around on a Sunday morning in a pair of boots and a tracksuit with your socks outside your trousers, then I'd probably question that one a little bit more.
Imagine if you bought a pair of pearly white Predators to... Imagine someone who did that, Paul.
I do look the business in him, though.
He doesn't.
I
He looks
do
right?
look the business in him.
Wow,
he
white
bought-
boots.
Yeah, white Preds. White
Preds.
Yeah. He
Wow.
hasn't played football since he was a teenager.
I've
Goodness
got
me.
the worst
Yeah.
touch you've ever seen in
Yeah,
your life.
so-
as well.
Yeah.
First touch of a trampoline. But talking about coaching, do you need to do anything 3v3? If you are on the sideline as a coach, should you coach anything, or should you just watch?
During games?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I think the fact that they're being billed as facilitators is a bit of an indicator and a clue around what the FA want the pitch side behaviours to look like. Positive reinforcement, encouragement, buzzwords, as we've mentioned in this episode and the previous one, I think are more than helpful and supportive. It's when you start saying things like press, drop, pass, those really finite directive words. We need to steer away from that, because if you say that and the kid does it, they've only done it because you told them.
Yeah.
Where's the long-term learning around, okay, we're going to try and steer them in a direction now of being able to recognize it if I don't say it. So give them an opportunity to experience it now. And that decision-making piece is and I'll say it again, the game's all about making the most effective decisions on a consistent basis. So let the kids experiment with it, with your prompting. So one little sort of acronym that I developed was around constraints-based coaching and developing independent sort of decision makers and problem solvers. So you provoke their emotions and their thinking around either a constraint, a team challenge, an individual incentive, or a task. So you provoke that feeling. You prompt it with questioning, buzzwords, and supportive statements, and then you praise the intention of it, whether that's technically, tactically, whatever it might be. Provoke, prompt, and praise I think if you're adopting those behaviours from the sidelines, then the kids are going to get a really good version of you.
So that constraint thing, we spoke about this before. So an author, David Epstein, I don't know what the book's called. It might be called Inside the Box. He's just bringing it out. But he's written also a book called The Sports Gene. And this book, he talks about constraints a lot of how to train. And Kyrie Irving, who I think he plays for the Boston Celtics now. I'm not 100% sure. Anyway, he's meant to be the best ball handler in basketball. But when he was a kid, his backboard was broken. So he didn't have the full backboard. So he had to learn ways to get the ball in off different parts of the backboard to score. And he credits that as like, that is what made him a creative player, because he didn't have like the perfect setting with which to train. He just had to think, differently. I find that really interesting.
Yeah, I'm really, really engaged in that type of stuff. The one I've read similar to that one is Michael Phelps, the swimmer, and on occasion the coach would like hide his goggles or break his goggles just before he jumped in the pool. Obviously not prior to an Olympic Games. That might not be the right decision to make, but get them into a position where the environment isn't perfect,
Right.
and there's a bump that they need to overcome, an obstacle, and that's when you take a step back and think, right, are they literally going to sink or swim?
Yeah.
And the backboard one is a great example, because they're creating so many new ways to be positive and progressive with their development. If we set up an environment that's clean and tidy, like those you see these passing combinations, and we see all these things as kids get older, and there is value behind that, execution wise and technical sort of understanding. But with the 3v3, with the way that it is, we want it to look quite messy, quite chaotic, and quite untidy. And it's only going to work if we're comfortable with that. If we're not comfortable with that, going back to the coach you just described there, you might have to take a long hard look at yourself and think, under 7 3v3 might not be for me. I might need to go and work with a different age group when it is different and it does look like the game you see on TV every night of the week. So it's going to take a particular type of coach, I think, to approach this in the right way.
Being comfortable in the mess.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to say this to my wife though. So when I'm making the house all messy, I'm gonna say, Paul said,
Yeah.
you got to be comfortable with the mess.
Be comfortable in the chaos.
Yeah, I'm just trying to coach you here.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to do my best.
Yeah.
So you have, obviously we've used your we use your drills on the Football DNA app, but a lot of those are designed for the age groups that we're working with. We haven't really done, well, we definitely haven't done the 3v3, but you have been working on a curriculum for the Football DNA app around how to coach 3v3 and what to focus on. Could you give us sort of some information around that? What can people expect? What will they get out of it? So if they have got the app or they want to get the app and they want to know about 3v3, what are they going to get?
Yeah, first of all, been working with Football DNA for 5 years. It's one of the best premium football coach development apps out there. And this program is going to coincide brilliantly with 3v3 coming out, as we've been discussing, next season at Sevens. And for any age group that want to explore 3v3, because I'm also thinking that, when kids are now 14s going 11v11, it was 13, so they're going to have another season at 9v9. That's the maximum format that you're going to play. So on occasion, we should be rolling out 3v3s with those age groups as well. So this curriculum isn't just the under 7s. I think it's applicable and it can be utilised at any age group because it's just going to be fun. So at time of recording, we're pretty much ready to roll this out very, very soon. So it's going to be a 36-week curriculum broken into 6 blocks of 6 weeks. The focus is being ball coordination and mastery, passing and receiving, dribbling, travelling with the ball and turning, attacking 1v1, defending and games. So working with Stuart at Football DNA, we've been putting the curriculum together, using some existing practices, but adapting them and making them applicable and relevant to 3v3. The big change with this is that we've created 46 new practices, with the bulk of those being actual 3v3 games, with a fair number of them also being 3v3 skills practices that then transition and link and lead into the 3v3 games. But these 46 new games are going to really, really help develop coaches' understanding of what to coach, how to coach it, which is the key thing with Football DNA. Lots of coaching provision out there that we see is the what, as we discussed before we press record. That's okay, but it's the how and the why that are the real skill. That's why Football DNA is at that level above, because you can watch the session being delivered. Yeah. You can look at the coaching points and listen to them, look at the progressions and regressions, apply them to groups or individuals. And it's the same case with the curriculum. So those sort of 6 areas for me are going to be really, really, they're going to flow nice from week to week. And they're going to essentially encompass everything that a young player needs to know and develop within that 36-week block to help them understand the game and to hopefully enjoy it and have some success at it through that under-7 season.
I mean, I said that from the start. The reason I liked Football DNA was because I could watch the 10-minute video and it was messy. And you're seeing these like amazing coaches encounter the same problems that you do, and that it doesn't all go to plan. And there's a kid that runs off and gets the ball, and there's a kid that miscontrols it. And because when you watch a lot of the stuff on YouTube, the anxiety from coaching would be like, what this don't look like when I do it. Like these kids are punching it, they're zipping it, everyone knows where to run.
It's in Miami.
Yeah, it's in Miami. Yeah, it's exactly that. And what I liked was I was watching someone do it in real time and correct the things that were going wrong. And that helped me understand, oh, so when that happens in my session, that's what I should say and do. Again, this is another thing you don't learn until you do it. You go and try and take these drills, and then you get annoyed and frustrated because your vision of what that drill should look like is completely unrealistic.
You also make a really, really good point around this. 3v3 isn't for under 7s only. This is like we came away and it's like we need to be doing 3v3 with our boys who are under 10s going in. And you're like, because it's fun and it's like little games, they'll love it. And I think, even at 11-a-side, you can work out ways in which you can do 3v3s with them.
Yeah, you're absolutely spot on in that when they do progress to, 7s, 9s, and ultimately 11-a-side, which they're then essentially going to do for the rest of their life, however long the time frame is of playing football at whatever level they are fortunate to get to. Learn the small games that are within the big game. So you watch 11v11 on the TV or on the park, at the park, there are loads of little moments of 3v3 occurring anyway. So become really skilled and proficient in that. And that's why now that you think about the fact that it's 3v3, into 5, into 7, into 9, an extra season now at 9, then into 11-a-side. The progression is far, far smoother now and the transition's far better. I think when you say, Ben, about coaches plucking out sessions off of the internet and trying to roll them out with their group, I'd look at 3 things with that. I'd look at, and there's nothing wrong with going on the internet to look at sessions. We all do that. We all steal ideas. We all sort of evolve ideas. But for me, you've got to filter them. Either you reject it immediately because you think that's not going to work. That's not applicable. I'm going to have that on the back burner for another time, whether this season or the next or beyond. So you're either going to reject it, you're going to adopt it. So you think, I can use that in its exact essence and form, lift it and utilize it with my group. And that might be the case, depends on what session you've looked at and what group you coach. Or more likely, you're going to adapt it. So you're going to use a smaller space, a bigger space, more footballs, different sort of set of numbers around, obviously, the individuals involved in the practice. You're going to apply more age-specific intention on it. And if you know which of those 3 you're going to utilize when you look at a Football DNA practice or otherwise, then that's a good starting point. Reject it because it's not right. I'll come back to it. Adopt it because it's right now and I think it's going to work, or more likely adapt it to shape it and make it specific and appropriate for the group I'm working with.
Quick one for the coaches and volunteers listening. If you're sorting kits for a grassroots team, you'll know the pain. It's never as simple as it should be. That's exactly why Discount Football Kits exists. They supply quality football kits at prices that actually work for grassroots clubs. No nonsense, no hard sell, just reliable teamwear that turns up on time and looks the part on match day. From full team kits to training wear for growing squads, everything's built to make your life easier. If you're tired of overpaying or overthinking kits, head to discountfootballkits.com and get your team sorted today. Go Cardless makes collecting payments simple with automatic direct debit. Membership fees come in on time every month without watching parents dig through their pockets only to find a crisp packet or race into the cash point while you wait in the rain. There's no more, I'll give it to you next week. You can just drop a link into your WhatsApp group and bingo. Payments are sorted. It handles the admin too, automatically keeping track of who's paid, what's outstanding, and retrying any payments that didn't go through, helping your club keep a steady cash flow for pitch hire, kits, and equipment. You can even pause or adjust payments when families need flexibility, keeping your club supportive and inclusive. Go Cardless takes care of the money so you can focus on running great sessions and growing your club. Now, we were going to talk about when to transition into 5v5, but I think I would rather you come back again and tell us how to do that, because at that point, I'll probably be really stressed and need your help about getting. So what we're going to do, we're going to answer some listener questions. So the first is from Tariq. He coaches an under-7 squad of 12 players playing 5v5. But because the squad is so big, the kids are only getting 20 minutes of game time each. And all have had to miss 5 matches this year to keep things fair. To fix this, he wants to split them into 2 smaller teams next season to increase playing time, while keeping the training together so they can reunite for 7v7 in a few years. He has a real mix of abilities, but all the kids get on brilliantly, so he wants to know whether he should mix the teams up completely or split them strictly by ability, and what would be the reasoning behind that choice.
Yeah, it's a well-worded question. That, I think the clue for me is within the question. I look at that line there, the kids all get on brilliantly. So why on earth would you divide them and split them by ability, which is going to create so many issues? This is an under-7s group, yeah?
Yes. Yeah.
So these are 6-7-year-old boys and girls
Yeah.
that want to play football because it's their main love in life. And if you start to shape that and put an adult lens on it and start to think, right, you've got a low ability, medium ability, and high ability makeup within that group, and start to really section it and hothouse it, we used to call that, then that's going to create more problems than it's worth. The fact that these scorelines aren't recorded, the fact that it's a development season, let the kids play with their mates. They'll get on brilliant anyway. So whether you've got boys or girls of the same or similar ability or quite distinctly different, they get on brilliantly. Let them form those friendships at this early age that they might keep going for the rest of their lives. So someone said something to me the other day about the one coach you don't want to be is a kid's last ever coach. And that really resonated with me, thinking, imagine you were the last coach of a particular boy or girl because they just didn't end up liking football that much because of the adult lens you applied to those early seasons and those early years, those formative years, which are so, so important to mould into a boy or a girl that love the game. So this one for me is a really interesting one in that you can either go one or two ways. Split them on ability because you think that's going to elicit more competitive football that the parents might like. But I'd really challenge that in that if you go the other way and divide them, split them according to friendships or just mixed abilities, you're gonna alleviate a lot of potential long-term problems, and you're gonna let the kids just enjoy it.
I think it was who did we have? It was Chris Ramsey, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Who spoke about it's good to have almost like a silver level of ability with a gold, or a bronze with a silver, so they're not all the same ability. You've got the ones that can learn from the kids that are slightly more advanced, and then when you are slightly more advanced, you become more of a team player to get them more involved, or there's ways in which you can adapt your game to bring them up, and you become maybe more of a leader. There's skills that you can learn from that. So I am with you on that. Having mixed ability teams, which is by far and away, we get questions about mixed ability teams all day, every day. And it is a challenge. And we've not really personally had those challenges because our kids are all similar level, a high standard.
I've heard Chris say that, and I've spoken with Chris on the Football DNA podcast, and he's one of my favourite guests. I've known Chris a long time. He's someone that looks equally comfortable working with the first team as he does with an under-7s group. And that takes a real skill and expertise. So I like the bronze, silver, and gold sort of application to where players are at. On top of that, I'd also add he or she, they're a bronze now. What they're going to be in 3 months, what they're going to be in 6 months, what they're going to be at the end of the season. So if we're judging and we're using that lens on the now, that's a bit misplaced for me because kids evolve and progress and develop at such different rates across all the age groups. So categorizing them is great, but be prepared to recategorize them as and when, and that will allow you to shape the groups, I think, accordingly.
Yeah, absolutely. We've seen so much of that in terms of development, and like kids that were kind of you thought would never be able to play, and then you're like, oh, actually, he's quite good now.
The whispering talent, they call that, and there's loads of examples of players that progressed through academy sort of systems into scholarships, into first team setups that weren't necessarily the golden player when they were under 10s, under 14s, but they just progressed at a night. The grey men, that weren't overly noticeable, weren't in many conversations, for example, but were so ultra consistent, adaptable and flexible, had a really strong parental network behind them. They're the ones that we can't ever ignore. It's not just the strivers and the strugglers. stick a lens on the copers, and there's going to be some out there that plop out at the end that might surprise you, I think.
So Jacques Edouard, he sent in some great feedback on 3v3 format, pointing out that the biggest thing people miss is there isn't just smaller football, but a format that drastically increases the touches, decisions, transitions, and 1v1 moments for every single player. That was just a shout out from Jacques. He didn't have a question, but we did have an anonymous listener who's reached out to Poundland Pep. Fair. With a classic grassroots dilemma about their successful under-7s team of 7 players, where one of the kids openly admits to everyone that he absolutely hates football. Recent tournament, the lad spent his time rolling around in the middle of the pitch and playing with bubbles. When the coaches previously tried to approach the parent about it, the kid just turned up the following week with brand new boots and a new drinks bowl. I mean, we all know how many drinks bottles we all go through, so I won't judge it too much on that.
Bloody Voss bottles, huh?
They want to know, what would you do in this situation, and if you've ever experienced dealing with a parent who is clearly forcing a kid to play against their will?
That's a heck of a question, that one, isn't it? What a situation to find yourself in. Poundland Pep, by the way, is an unbelievable nickname. If you're Poundland Pep, what does that make you, Mike?
Howdy Arteta.
Oh, okay, that was off the bat. You knew that one.
Yeah.
What a duo. Okay, yeah, that's a real problem. That's a real problem. That kid does not want to be there. So if I'm hearing that right and reading it right again, that the coach in question here has already spoken to the parent about it. I'd like to think where that conversation took place on the sideline before training. Was that after a game when there'd been situations such as what we said there, the kids in the middle of the pitch rolling around playing with bubbles? He wants to be a kid. He wants to go and do stuff that isn't at all sort of to do with football. So you need to speak to the parent, but you need to find the right time. Ideally away from the club, away from the environment of a training session or a game, even if it's before the game, because at the end of the game, it was also, you've got heightened emotions, that emotional attachment that we've alluded to in the conversation. So whether that's a phone call in the week, meeting up, ideally more of a face-to-face one in person, having a coffee and just talking about it and speaking about it in a calm, measured way from the child's perspective on what you're noticing, speaking about noticing skills, observational skills, self-awareness. You're not coming at it from an angle as far as it's affecting the other kids and it's meaning that you're one player down in a game. You're purely invested in this child's welfare. There's other hobbies or interests that this kid could be doing. Maybe he wants to play another sport. Maybe he's not interested in sport at all. Maybe he wants to be at home playing on his PlayStation. That's fine. Find something that the kid wants to do and enjoys doing and has a love for. And if it's not football, then it just comes down to the timing, the approach and the professionalism of that conversation between coach and parent, and ideally having someone there with you, because I've been involved in conversations when you've got a network of support around you and they're far more manageable than a one-to-one. So try not to be involved in a conversation when it's just you and one other. Have your support coach with you. If it's a mum or a dad, have both parents there and just have an adult conversation about it, because ultimately football for this kid isn't important. So make the right decision, but do it in the right way.
I think, and I don't know the context behind that particular situation, but we would know that if it was a similar situation, we're close with all of the parents. There's their added dynamic that this is my group of friends now. There's socials, we get together. Do I want to miss out on those opportunities that I enjoy, but just because my kid doesn't want to play anymore? So I think it's a real tough one, but obviously the right answer is you have to do what's right for the child.
It's 100% why lots of these problems happen and I know, like you were saying, Paul, we get into problems when we start making it about us rather than the kid. But I think in the defense, it's harder to defend the coach, but in the defense of a parent, let's say you move somewhere, like for me, I'm not from around there. I moved here. The football team gives you an instant network of friends, and then that becomes your social life. So like for me and Mike, I mean, our boys train together Tuesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Oh, so they play Sunday, but they train together 3 times a week. All you're seeing and speaking to are those parents, and over a period of time, they become your friends. And yeah, your kid has got absolutely no interest in being there, but then you're like, but this, tonight we'll go to Ballers Elite. That'll be the one night of the week I'll have a few beers with everyone. That's my social time, because it has to be intertwined with what else I'm doing. And then, yeah, that parent should make a better decision. But it becomes hard because you're like, but I've made some friends.
I want to be
I've
here.
made some
Yeah.
friends.
I also think, as you say that, I'm thinking about like the social network behind being involved in a grassroots football club. And academy is very similar, maybe a bit more challenging because the parents almost feel like they're opposing each other at times. But there's so many things you can do in a football club. You can be the secretary. You can, be involved in the fixture coordinating. You can help, with the equipment, with the pitch. So if that parent is that invested in the environment and the friendships, there must be a way to keep them involved, albeit their child goes and, plays basketball or swims at the weekend instead. Now, if they love being around the game that much in the club, find a role for them, and then they can really throw their energy into the environment in a more positive way.
It's true, because clubs always need volunteers, right? Last question was from Corin Evans. He runs an under-8s grassroots team. They're a pretty good team, but he has been experiencing some behavioural problems in the team where a couple of the stronger players have had a bit of a power trip amongst each other during games and training, not playing as a team and trying to top dog each other on the pitch. He just sent out a player agreement that he wants them all to sign. Is doing that via the parents and agreeing to a team code of conduct, or they will be subbed or not picked for games. What would you do to address a power struggle between players?
I think that's at times a fairly common one. I would reframe that. I wouldn't call it a problem. I'd love that. I would love to have that. You've got kids, and is it a couple of the stronger players, the more dominant players that are competitive, want to be top dog, as you say there. Bring that on. Like, encourage that. Try not to challenge that or treat that as a problem. You want more kids to be competitive. I know we're talking about 3v3s and under 7s being, and I'm loath to say it, non-competitive. It's still going to be competitive games. The kids are going to want to win the game for their own sort of self-satisfaction and pride, as will the coaches. It's not, you don't go into any game to want to lose. I'd really, really work with this and support this and encourage more of this, but temper it at the right time. So if it's a couple of players that really, really are competitive, play games such as the classic 5v5 when you've got like your man-to-man marking system. So it's me against my team against yours, but we both start on 5 points. If I score, you're on 4 points, even though the game is only 1-0 to my team. But I'm going to beat you. Likewise, you really, really want to beat me. But you're applying it across the whole group to try and elevate that competitive sense amongst the other children. So you want more of this. You don't want to lessen this. It's just a case of reframing it and shaping it in the most conducive way so that it doesn't cause too many unnecessary problems amongst parents and across the other kids. I would really advocate this. I think this is a great quality to have.
Yeah, I mean, I think you do get that as the kids get better, right? And they're kind of out on the pitch and they want to be the best player. They want to be seen as the best player. I do think it's good. I think, I think we do have it in our team a little bit. I think when it manifests itself as moaning at each other, that is when I always I'll say to them, you can moan at a lack of effort, but don't moan at whether that person's not passed the ball to you or they made a mistake. My son excluded. Just leave me to moan at him. But like what we've said to them recently is like, get them together and be like, if you made a mistake, what would you want the rest of the team to do? Would you want them to shout and moan at you, or would you want them to encourage you? They all say encourage. It's like, we'll do that then.
Yeah.
Because when you moan at them, that knocks them. So don't do that. It's advice we have to follow ourselves.
So just on that, I think it's key to, and again, coaches, we're all guilty of it. We highlight the don'ts and the nevers and the don't do that's. Let's really encourage the do's and the what we can do. So I'm thinking there about that man-to-man game, player-to-player game, and thinking that, if I moan or, throw a strop in whatever situation, I lose a point. You gain a point. You're now beating me. I don't want that. I moan again. Now you're beating me by 2. If I encourage a teammate or I, praise them after something good, or I help them after a setback or a mistake, I gain a point. So of course, putting a point system on it is quite sort of a finite way of looking at it, but kids want to win. So what's wrong with being competitive and putting a point system on it and throwing incentives and challenges and tasks at it that are more social and psychological. That's just, sort of that holistic development is so key for the kids. But yeah, highlighting the do's and trying to disregard the don'ts. I think that's why I would not frame that as a problem. I'd frame that as a challenge.
That's a good game to play, actually, with the points. We'll definitely do that.
Have it on a whiteboard as well, so the kid has to run off, tally it up on the whiteboard, so then you've got it visually to refer to at the end, and that forms your summary. And the kids might even feed that back and go on then, kids, there's your summary. You've got a minute. You feed back to us and talk to us about how that sort of brought about the game in the way that it did.
That'd be great, although I'd be slightly worried about some of them, what they'd draw if we gave them a pen and a whiteboard.
The kids
I would definitely, I would definitely be tempted to obviously do the standard drawing. But Paul, there's another conversation we've had where we've learnt a ton, and we know that anyone listening is going to have learnt a ton. Where can people find you, interact with you? If you do want them to message you. But if people want to hear more from you and find out, get more advice and learn about coaching, where can they find you?
So X is one that I use sort of sporadically, more to sort of see content rather than actively post myself. I think LinkedIn's the main one. There's a lot of really, really good stuff out there. Often share a lot of the Football DNA stuff along with Stuart and the guys there. So whether that's a monthly blog, some new sessions, an analysis piece, a new podcast. So LinkedIn's probably the best place to search up and have a little look at some of the things that we share and maybe sort of get in touch.
I appreciate that, Paul. Well, it's been another education.
Brilliant. Can't wait to listen back.
Cheers, guys. Yeah, many thanks for the invite. It's been brilliant. Thank you.
So there you have it. If you've been feeling a bit unsure or worried about whether 3v3 is the right format for you, hopefully today's episode has given you some peace of mind. There are so many benefits to this format. Most importantly, it should help players to develop a real love for the ball. It's all about letting them have fun and building those technical skills kids love. Dribbling, turning and feeling confident on the ball. So don't fear the new format, get excited and embrace it. And hey, if it feels a little tricky when you first get started, don't stress. We're all learning this together. Here is your game plan. Keep listening to the podcast for more insights. Head over to the Football DNA app to check out Paul's brilliant curriculum. Take a deep breath. Everything you need to succeed is right at your fingertips. At the end of the day, it's all about the kids having fun. So just remember, it's only kids football. If you enjoyed the podcast, please take 2 seconds to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss future episodes. And if you want to check out our previous episodes, just click here.